morning, everyone, and welcome to High Trust Coaching Live. I am Hope Borman. I am the Divisional President for High Trust Coaching, and I have with me one of our master level coaches, Dan Munford. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Terrific. So how's the weather in Utah today?
Oh, it's a little cloudy.
A little cloudy. We've got overcast in Newport Beach.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
It was really warm this morning, actually. So
was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're all a little chilly this morning, so we're not used to anything under 50 in California. So at least in Southern
Right.
California. So welcome everyone to High Trust Coaching Live. This is an event that we do every single Wednesday morning, and our primary goal, is to bring value to all of our High Trust community, our ecosystem, and maybe give you some food for thought and something to take away for the rest of the week to make just make it a beautiful impact in your business. So let's launch off. Today, Dan and I thought that as we are thinking about our business plan, as we're thinking about 2021 and our vision, the most important element of our business planning and our goal setting for 2021 or any year is our why. So we're going to talk today about the law of the iceberg, which is from High Trust Selling. And the law of the iceberg says that the truest measure of your success is invisible to your clients. So Dan, I'm going to turn this over to you for a minute. Why is this the very first law of the 14 laws?
Because this is where it all starts. This is where high trust selling starts. High trust selling starts with you. And high trust selling starts with the law of the iceberg. And as we know, the law of the iceberg is, from that perspective, is everything that's below the surface. And as we dive into our why or what's below the surface with us, I think one of the essential questions is, what is your essential foundation? And I really like that word essential. The definition of essential is interesting. It's absolutely necessary or extremely important. And the reason I wanted to say that is because our why is so deep, and so below the surface that it's important that we know how to get there, and we know how to find it, and we know how, it's just such an important piece to our success that it's fun to talk about. It's one of my favorite things. I live by this law, literally. Every person that walks in my office can see my life plan. I mean, I have a 7-page document that dissects my life, and I live by it. And I think it's very, very important. So we start with your essential foundation, and how do we get there? And we ask ourselves the question, what's important about being successful to us? And we go super deep with that. And how do we go deep with that? We continue down that path to the basics of, obviously most important thing about success to somebody right off the surface is maybe monetary gain, maybe something like that. But as we go deeper, we can find our true why. And actually, I'll read mine to you because I'm not shy about it. I think it's a phenomenal thing. And so I've written down my life purpose, and my life purpose states to create a life by design, to be a gentleman and the best partner, father of my ability, to give back to the mortgage industry by teaching, by paying it forward, and helping others get what they want. And so as we dive into that, it's really, really fun to talk about,
Yeah. I agree with you, Dan. And let me ask you a question, because I know that this is something you're very invested in. I know that you invest yourself in this all the time, every year in and year out. Does your why ever change?
Absolutely. It changes all the time. Matter of fact, that as you bring that up, it reminds me of a coaching conversation I had a couple of weeks ago. And I'm diving into this very deeply with my coaching members right now. And as I did that, I pulled out a life plan from 2002. And I couldn't believe the accomplishments that I had personally done. I was shocked myself to see all those things that had come to fruition through this practice. It was phenomenal. It was really, really a cool thing. You know,
Yeah.
we also dive into life boarding or vision boarding, and that's a
Mhm.
good practice to follow as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
But the things as we talk about this is, and I said essential foundation. I said asking your question, of what's important about success to you, and then as
Mhm.
you dive deeper, you get to your desires, your mission, and your life purpose, right?
Mhm.
And so it's really important that our life and our career have a foundation, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what is that foundation? And
Yeah.
most people can't answer that question. What's the
Yeah.
foundation of your life or career?
Mhm. Mhm.
Interesting thing.
It's so very, very true, and I think that that's probably the best investment of our time between now and the year and the, and the end of the year is to really be diving in and identifying what that is. What is your foundation? What is essential? I mean, the word essential has taken on a whole new meaning this year, right?
That's for
And
sure.
but it's, and I think that's even a deeper, a deeper meaning. And, I mean, one of the things that I have learned, that I always extract from, the law of the iceberg is, your pull power. So Todd talks about your pull power. And once you've identified the purpose, your why, you create your pull power. And your pull power is your inner accountability, your constant reminder from the heart. So that's why it's so important, is because this is what is going to drive everything that you do. It's going to be your filter, right, Dan?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I've looked at this practice so much lately that it's given me this interesting thought. And the thought is when you're making decisions, simple decisions throughout your life, should I
Uh-huh.
buy this? Should I do this? Should I invest in this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
where do we get the answers to those questions?
Yes.
And it's very simple for me because I can pull this document out. I can go to the page that is aligned with that portion of my life,
Right.
and I can use it as a decision guide.
Right. Right.
And it pulls me through that pull
Mm-hmm.
power, like you talked about. It pulls
Mm-hmm.
me through anything that I'm questioning throughout my life. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah, it actually makes it real simple.
it does. It really
It
makes
just
it
makes it real
simple.
simple.
Yeah, very simple. You
Yeah.
know, and a lot of people, how am I going to get here? And how am I going to get there? And how am I going to get here? And how just isn't enough.
Oh my
You
goodness,
know,
no.
it's
Yes.
just not enough. So you must know why you want to get there and why you want to go there or why you want to dig deep into these layers of your
Mhm.
why
Mhm.
your life to get
Mhm.
to that
Mhm.
point. And I think
Mhm.
that's huge. I
Mhm.
I read a lot, and as I do, it all filters to the high trust selling guide. It really
Yes.
does. High trust selling is so timeless and interesting because as I'm looking at these practices people are coming out with or trying, and then I'm like, oh, that's the law of this, and that's the law of this, and that's
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
oh, my why is the law of the iceberg, and my purpose is the law of the iceberg, and so the law of the iceberg is key. And
Mhm.
as we think about this, where does everything start, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And
So,
that's with
so
us.
Dan, you've been having this conversation with your coaching members that you coach with High Trust. What are some of the aha moments that have been coming as a result of that? And I'm kind of thinking about my own conversations, and I'm thinking about what I've asked all of the coaching members that I work with is to first reflect, because this is something that Todd Duncan also teaches, is to reflect on what we have accomplished. And you touched on it a few minutes ago, on reflecting on not only what we've accomplished in this year, but what did we learn?
Yeah, for sure. What did we learn? One of the things that I like to do in not only my practice but in my management of others is
Mhm.
teach the practice of living life on purpose. And
Ooh,
so
yes.
as we could, because what happens if we don't live it on purpose?
Mhm.
Then we're
Mhm.
living it by accident or by reaction or
Oh, of course.
whatever. So on purpose is always the thing. Like, what are we doing? Let's do this on purpose with a reason, and then we'll get there the way we want to rather than the way someone else wants us to, right? So that's an interesting thought of doing it on purpose rather than having somebody else drag you through life, right?
Right. Or be at the effect of everyone else, everything else.
Yeah,
Right.
of everything around you. Everything
Right.
around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be on purpose and intentional about anything that we do. So Dan, with our coaching members, what happens when you talk to one of our coaching members, maybe someone who's new to high trust coaching and hasn't been in our world, and we start to have that conversation of your why, your purpose, your foundation. And they don't have an answer to that. How do you help them to dial into that?
Well, one of the things that I remember when I first was taught this by Todd years and years ago is reflection. And as I walked away from that day's sales academy, I'll never forget it because I was reflecting. I was alone in Denver, Colorado, in a hotel room by myself. And I had just had this moment of reflection that that was priceless to me. And so what I do is I like to say to my coaching members, I like to say, hey, why don't you isolate yourself for a few hours and see if you can come up with this and see if you can have this moment where you're reflecting on what this first page of your life plan looks like. And then once you have your hierarchy, which are the 5 to 7 things that are important in your life, let me just read through some of these real quick. And these are the things below the surface, Hope. Yeah. These are the things below the surface. And those things are your family, your spirituality, your health, your intellect, your professional goals, and maybe your financial security. And I'm not saying that's what it is for any individual. I'm just saying that's what it is for me. Therefore, I've broken those out into individual whys. So now I have a why for each area, and then I have a vision for each area. And then I have the goals that go along with each area. And so as you reflect on this and you have these goals in these certain areas of your life, you can make everything simple and everything on purpose, like I had said.
Yeah, that's a wonderful approach. That's a wonderful system. So first you identify your what's. Right? What it is that you're looking at, your goals, what it is, or your dreams, whatever it is that you're wanting to accomplish. Then you write your why, right? Why you want those things, or why those things are important to you. And then you write a vision around that. Is that right? I just want to make sure I get that right because I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. The why in each area, and then a mission statement in each area. And let me give you an example of that real quick.
Okay, sure.
I'll give you an example of what I write down in my intellect area. In my intellect, on my intellect page, it says, I am a lifetime learner. I will continue to learn each and every day to enrich the lives of me and those around me. And that's my why in that area. And then I go on to say, for the vision or focus on intellect, I will create a mind that will continue to enrich my mind and use this to help those around me. I will utilize this to teach and lead in my personal and professional life. And then I go on to have specific goals. And one of those is to read 50 books a year. So that kind of gives you an idea of how an actual area breaks down. And that's really, really cool. And like I said, this is all the stuff below the surface. And in order to do this, I think you need to have some goal orientation that is different than most. And let me explain that a little bit.
Sure.
What are your now goals? What are your today goals? What are your this week goals? What are your this month goals? And what are your this year's goals? And go a little further. What are next year's goals? And then I've also written down in the below the surface area here, persistence and courage. Not a lot of people actually do this. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
When we talk about coaching members, and getting them to do this isn't the easiest thing. However, it is enlightening and very, very fun when they do.
When they do. Yes, I know. I actually made it an action plan for all of the coaching members that I work with as a result of, this master teaching from Todd Duncan. And so I made it an assignment. And I said, by our next call, I want you to find, quiet time to address these questions. And it was interesting with regard to, reflecting on the prior year, and how they didn't give themselves a lot of credit for all of what they accomplished.
All their accomplishments, sure. Yeah.
It was interesting to me.
We're our toughest critic, right?
Yeah. Or once we accomplish them, we kind of just keep moving forward. And I know that's kind of the foundation of coaching, is that, we move the needle, we move forward, move the needle, we move forward. But at the same time, it was just really interesting how much we had forgotten, or how that much they had forgotten. Fortunately for them, I keep notes, so I could tell them, did you forget about the fact that you opened a new brokerage this year? Did you forget about the fact that you took your team from 3 LOs to 20? Did we forget, that type of thing? So it was interesting. It was an interesting exercise. And, but I think that they did give themselves, most of our people acknowledge themselves for being able to pivot and being able to make that adjustment given what we were handed this year with COVID.
It's very interesting how that word pivot is key to this year. Not only is it key in our immediate practices, but it is key in our leadership as well. Yes. And that's a lot of my coaching members are in the leadership roles. And man, it's been really interesting to watch them pivot, and some of the things that they have done in order to pivot, with, obviously, digital video, doing a lot of video stuff, doing planning in areas that they've never planned before. A lot of my coaching members have started to create social media planning. And that's been really fun to walk them through all of the social media planning. It's interesting as we pivot in this new area, as we used to be able to go where the people were that we wanted to do business with, right? And now where are they? Well, they're at home. They're at home. So how are we connecting, and how are we making a plan to connect, so that we're doing this even in these rough times on purpose? One of the things that I wrote down here is, do we want to be dragged into the future, or do we want to push ourselves into the future and meet our goals and our dreams with that plan?
Right. So Dan, I was just thinking about this and kind of bringing this full circle back to the law of the iceberg, and and going into 2020, January 2020, with our why, deeply rooted, dialed in. And so that when we got the surprise of COVID and our world changed, it did a full 360, we were ready. We still kept moving through, because, and what that was, is that, again, that pull power of, well, this is what I intended for this year, so I need to find a way to accomplish it. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of things are, when you talk about the pull power, it's really interesting that a lot of our members have been pulled in the refi direction, or have been pulled away from what they were planning previously, due to this mass influx of business and now I'm not worried about my business because I have so much of it, but we still have to stick to our plan, and so that we can still reach those hopes and dreams that we have. And so as I look at this, I think, all right, one of the things that will pull us into the future is sticking to those plans, which are your partner plans, which are your strategic planning meetings, which are your, dot, 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 right? And so as we think about this, man, pull power is huge. Pull power is huge. What pulls us away from our desk? What pulls us away from a phone call? What pulls us away from something that is really, really important to us? That's why I like that word essential. It's really important to stick to the things that are essential in your planning and in your life and in your, goals and dreams and your why. And if you're not sticking to those things, what's pulling you away from them? Please recognize that. Please recognize what's pulling you away from making sure that all the things are in place to continue with your plan into the next 3 to 5 years. We like to think in 5-year cycles, right?
Yes, we do.
So,
yes, we do. Yeah.
So as we think in 5-year cycles, one of the questions I like to ask my members is, where do you see yourself personally, and where do you see yourself professionally in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah,
and,
great question.
Yeah. And the other question I like to ask that helps some of these members get to their why is, who are you? And that's a helpful question. And not a lot of people answer that questions for themselves. So
yeah. So when we talk about obviously what we were presented this year, I mean, our industry enjoyed an immense amount of volume of business. And in many cases, or most cases, our businesses doubled and sometimes tripled and quadrupled. And I think that, that while that's been amazing, I think that our why gave it meaning. Having our why, it wasn't just making, doing more production than they've ever done before. It wasn't making, 3 times the amount of income that they have, maybe ever in their career. That wasn't going to give it meaning. It wasn't going to give it purpose. It was, how many families did they help?
Yeah.
Right. And obviously tying it back to their why. Yeah. Right.
And how do we do that? How do we stay focused on that? And I think the answer is having it forward, having it in front of you, having those things. Like I said, this sits on my desk all the time. It's never out of my sight. And as we have those things in front of us and we can review them constantly, one of the things I force myself to do is probably, I would say, every 6 months, I review the document to see if anything has changed in my life that is going to affect that. And then as I review it, I make the adjustments, and then I have a new copy. And it's interesting because I was in the file folder the other day, and I probably had 12 or 13 or 14 copies of this document that I had adjusted over the years. And I have gone back and reviewed the first one versus the new one, but I haven't gone through the ones that were intermittently in the middle. And I think I'm going to do that to see where that all plays out and how it lands. It's really fun to see your successes come to fruition.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And it's important to acknowledge them. It's very, very important to acknowledge them.
And celebrate them.
And celebrate them. Absolutely. So I'm just kind of thinking about that. And I'm thinking about, it is a challenge. So as you were talking about how disciplined you are, Dan, and how many years you've been so disciplined, and how committed and invested you are in this process. Was there a time when you weren't, or what was the defining moment that shifted you to say, I am not going to be at the effect of my business, my life. I'm going to be intentional, and I'm going to do something different?
There are a couple of moments there that I bring to mind. And the first moment was in the hotel room in Denver. And that was a defining moment in my life where I was going to write this document. And that was big. And then as I reviewed that document throughout the next few years, some things came to fruition that were really great. Relationships got better. Business got better. everything got better. And then as I excelled in my career, there is a moment that is popping into my head where things weren't so good in say my personal life or in but business was still good and business was still flowing. But
Right.
then I sat down and I redid this document.
Mm-hmm.
And when I redid that document at that moment in my life that was tough, it brought back the light. It brought back the invigorated the process again. And now
the fire in the belly.
yeah, it brought back the fire. And now I don't know. It's been interesting. You know, as you look at these things, they can dictate a few things. And one of the things that I think is phenomenal for me is it has brought discipline in every area of my life rather than just in my business or just in my relationships. And man, it deepens relationships like nobody's business, man.
Sure. Yeah. And I love the fact that, I mean, obviously in coaching, we do a quarterly review of your business plan, right? We do a quarterly review of business plan and the numbers and are we on track? Are we tracking towards our goal for the year? But I think another exercise in that would be what you do, Dan, which is, yes, we review our numbers, but we also review our life plan. Are we on track? Are we exceeding the goal? Have they changed?
One of the practices that I did for a while early on in the process was I was reviewing that with my partner at the time. And as I reviewed things with that individual, it helped bring light to each area, especially as I was raising my children. That was really cool. So yeah, I think reviewing is huge. And I think the other thing is, lastly, I guess, is none of the things in my life plan have to do with an actual money just doesn't matter, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Money
you never do it for the money.
You do it for your why,
right?
And everything else falls into place, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to get to in that little last section. So
Yeah.
do it for your why, not for the money.
Exactly. Do it for your why, not for the money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dan, thank you so much. I can't believe we're coming up on the end of our 30 minutes. I would like to kind of throw out a challenge to everyone listening now and or listening later. If you don't know your compelling why, ask yourself the questions every morning. Just let it marinate in you. I'm working with a coach right now who's asking me to identify what lights me up inside. And I am just letting that marinate. So find out what those things are that light you up inside. Follow Dan's path. I think that's a great formula. So thank you, Dan, for that. And by the end of the week, and just be intentional. By the end of this week, I'm going to have my why. I'm gonna dial in and know my why. And when you do that, go into High Trust Today Facebook group and share it with us. Dan and I would love to hear your why. Yes?
I would love that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So if you're not currently in coaching now, we would love to invite you to schedule a free coaching consultation with one of our coach consultants. Just go to hightrustcoaching.com to get more information and schedule a call. I am so grateful to Dan and all of our coaches for being such the amazing individuals that you are, the value that you bring, and the selflessness in which you bring it. So Dan, thank you so much for all that you do for High Trust Coaching.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. And have a great week this week. And thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much.
All right, honey.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.